I recently read this manga called Harem Marriage or Hare-Kon, which is a manga about this girl Koharu that through circumstance gets forced into a marriage with a guy that already has two wives, believe it or not. Now I have a lot to say about harems. I mean, after all, I have my own harem. I brought my wives along just to not be as lonely, of course, as you might be able to see here. That being said, I think it's an interesting manga. If you want to rather watch something instead of read it, it has been adapted as a live action TV show, like a mini series or drama or whatnot. But for most people, you probably will just read subtitles anyways, so might as well read the manga. The synopsis is, roughly speaking, you have like this girl, Koharu, as I said, she has a bad time with men, or like she's bad at choosing men. She easily gets roped into situations, let's say it like that, oftentimes leading to her not being very happy about it. And then, after a few failed attempts, she moves back home, wants to work at her mom and dad's cafe, and, well, they are 30 million yen in debt. Shit. And then this guy comes along and says, hey, I'll give you the money if you marry me. So she does. She's not very willing about it. She's like, yeah, let me keep my distance, right? I'm not going to do anything marriage related too much. I'm just taking the money and kind of pout around in the corner. Well, I just did it for the money. I don't want to be here, but. And that's kind of like the first 50-ish chapters. And it was getting kind of boring. And I was like, can I stretch it out to 200 chapters? If after 50 chapters it already gets kind of sluggish. But funny enough, it does get kind of cute at that point. Unbelievably so. I didn't expect that it would go to that point. There's still some drama going on and interesting concepts, but for the most part, it's a pretty sweet story. Now, it might be a bit presumptuous for me to assume that, but I believe this is because this work, you might be shocked, is not written by a person that looks like me, but Asian, but by a woman. The author, Non, it is a full on woman that has a child and a husband. And just to let you in on a little secret, you know, spoiler alert, but there are babies involved later in the series. And surprisingly so, the author also had a baby. Now, which led to what is a bit up in the air, right? Was the author drawing babies and they're going like, oh, I want another one, or the author get pregnant and then was like, oh yeah, let's add that into it. I believe it's the first one. Just to get it like out of the way. Should you read Harem Marriage? I believe, not necessarily, right? It has beautiful artwork. There are some panelings that are absolutely fantastic. There are panels that are really funny. The whole reason I read this manga in the first place is because I saw this panel here, which is how I discover a lot of mangas these days. It's just I see like a funny panel, but I'm like, oh, well, what is this? Let's check it out. But for the most part, it's very wishy washy. I think if you go in with the expectations that you have like a edgy story that's going to be just filthy and sexy and whatnot, you might be a little bit disappointed. If you go in and want to have this cute romancy story without any drama and everything's just beautiful, you might be disappointed. If you want to just have a little bit of drama, a little bit of cutesiness, a somewhat shitty ending, then this might be for you. Now I will get to the spoilers a little bit later on, but I will put a spoiler tag on the top somewhere to signify that it's spoiler territory. Now, for the most part, and I wouldn't consider this spoiler territory, but the manga could cover very interesting topics because the topic of a harem marriage obviously comes with a lot of interesting concepts as a whole. How is it to have multiple wives? What are their roles? What's like the whole baby situations? People have their own lives. Like what led people to get to this point, etc., etc. And throughout the manga, a lot of these topics do get kind of brought up. You have like the idea of unrequited love, but love that kind of got brought to a stopping point without any resolution, and how that is being dealt with, and moving on from that. The whole idea of childbearing as a whole, and the worth of a woman, yeah, as much as I know about that, of course, as somebody that has children, that's, you know, in a family situation is supposed to, especially in a marriage situation, is supposed to provide the husband with offspring. It does cover these topics to some degree, right? One of the earlier ones, of course, is Koharu's aversion to the whole harem thing, and to integrate with that. At first, it's more like she's kind of contempt with it, with the idea of, well, he has other wives, so I can kind of just drag it along. But later on, it turns more into this, well, he has other wives, but I want him to just look at me situation, which is quite interesting if you think about the concept of a harem marriage as a whole, or polygamy, because there is that idea that, of course, that not everybody is getting treated equally. People want to pretend that it's happening, but it never does. When you read some reports from people about this topic, usually there's one wife that's favored, or like one husband that's favored, and the other ones are just kind of slowly gets pushed to the side. Like, oh yeah, you're the worker. You clean the house, you wash the clothes, you do the cooking, you do the shopping, everything. While I and my favorite here get it on, right? And there's not much of this flip flopping going on the entire time. But in the same vein, it most of these concepts never go all the way. They never get fully resolved. They always kind of go part there, and then kind of just dissolve. It's like, okay, we covered the main point that brought us to this stage, but instead of taking it further, we just kind of fizzle it out, move on to the next concept. And that's something that bothered me a lot, despite everything, right? Where every time it got to that point, it's like every story arc never really ended in a very satisfactory way. It wasn't horrible per se, but you always had this lingering, can we finish this? Can this be explained more? Can we delve into this topic a bit further? But it never happens. It really doesn't. And the same kind of goes for the ending. Without spoiling it, it has this build up. Everything comes together to this neat little package where you could go that direction or that direction. But they go that direction. It doesn't know where to go. It just kind of drags on in one way or another. And it is a happy ending. I can give you that much. It is, yay, everybody's happy, and woo. Not everybody, but I'm not gonna spoil why that is. Even in the spoiler section, it kind of just repeats this wishy-washiness throughout the end. And this now brings me to wanting to get to the spoilers. As I said, about the first quarter or so, the first 50 chapters, are mostly centered around Koharu, kind of getting dragged into the Harem Marriage with Rinosuke, Yuzu, and Madoka, are all the characters, 3 wives and 1 guy. Ooh. And you kind of see her side to it, oh, I'm doing it for the money, I don't actually want to be here. No, I don't want to have, relationships with that man actually. And why does he even want me to be with him? And at first, the first 30 or so chapters are interesting, I would say. This is intriguing. This is a mystery. Where's it going? And then it gets kind of revealed that Rinosuke is just a kid that that she knew, or that she kind of bullied a little bit. You could almost say, because she was a tomboy. She dragged the shy Rinosuke around a little bit, and he had these dark feelings. Oh, I want to dominate her, and he just dragged that along all the way into adulthood, and that's why he wanted to marry her, which is very obsessive. And that will be an interesting topic, how obsessiveness develops, right? Because he obviously was very obsessed with Koharu, but that wasn't really the thing. At first it seemed like it. At first, oh, that's why he's obsessed with her, because as a child he felt almost inadequate compared to her, and he wanted to kind of reverse the roles. But that just kind of gets thrown out of the window And then it's like, oh yeah, he's a pervert, but actually, I love him. I actually now love him. I fell in love with him. And then that entire plot point gets kind of thrown out, right? It's like, she's no longer opposed to it. Now it's actually reversed because now she actually wants him. And this is like a string that goes through the entire story where she actually is jealous of the other girls all the time. Then you have Madoka's kind of story that is happening. They all like happen piecemeal from time to time, and there's like small intertwined things. But for the most part, like every character has like their story. You have Madoka, who knew Rinosuke as a kid. She was like you could say a runaway, and she engaged in some unsavory business, compensated dating, so to speak. Well, not so to speak, actually compensating dating. And Rinosuke kind of discovered that and kind of protected her from it. He lied to her, saying like, "Oh yeah, this guy's a cop that you're about to meet right now," and kind of like trying to get her out of it, which she did. And she kind of, when she did that compensated dating thing, she got pregnant, of, upon which she had an abortion, which then caused scarring in the uterus, which, you know, it went to the point where she couldn't have children, basically. So she went and got her uterus removed. That was very interesting. Like this entire concept of what it means to be a woman, the whole idea of what happens if you cannot have children, right? How your own worth is tied to it, especially in a marriage. And it really came to like an apex where I thought they really go into it. And then the whole, yeah, I had the operation, I'm divorcing you, goodbye. And that was kind of it for the most part. She came back later for a little like return stint, you could say, but that really wasn't important. The really important part was like this whole leading up to like her background and then her not having children or not being able to have children. And it never got explored further than that. I wished they would have gone more into it. And then you had Yuzu, who first had a different boyfriend. And, he was like the happy-going guy that everybody loved. And everybody thought, that they are going to get together, which was actually kind of happening. Until Rinosuke appeared, hired him as a bodyguard, and it was shown that he was a bit over the top. And also maybe also a bit abusive, right? In the sense of if he cannot have it, he's getting kind of not just pushy, but also very almost kind of violent, right? There were scenes where he's shown that he's choking her, or as a bodyguard position, he beat somebody up close to death, so he got to prison. And then Rinosuke kind of like snooped in and snatched her up. And that was like the whole story with Yuzu, where it was about this unrequited love, or like it was requited love actually, but it kind of got put on a hold because he went to prison. And there was like this little time where it was like clearly she wanted to still be together with that guy to some degree, but she also was pregnant and she didn't really know if it was Rinosuke's child or the other guy's child. So that was really interesting as a concept. If that was like explored further, but then suddenly the guy goes, "Well, I can't have children anyways," and well, she's yours. Like I'm generalizing a little bit. It's a bit more explained or whatnot. But for the most part, that's actually how this part ends. He gives up and just moves away to another city. He just flees. It never gets resolved in a satisfactory way. He's not like, "Oh, I'm defending, I'm fighting for her. I actually want her back." He's kind of like, he gets there just a little, and then backs off. And she's like, I'm prepared to leave this family," and then she gets there, and then she backs off. And this leads into the last part where Koharu is now part of the family where Yuzu had the child, and they're still living together, and she kind of becomes more and more jealous, right? I'm just the woman on the side. He has like his child that he's happy with, he has his wife that he's happy with, and I'm just kind of like there. I'm basically the nanny. And this is also interesting, as this is basically what would happen in a polygamous relationship, right? Somebody would get pregnant first, they would have a child, and now the other people in the relationship are just glorified nannies, while the other two are parents with each other. And it really goes, it goes far, it goes very far, to the point where Koharu is kind of like, yeah, Madoka is now out of the picture, and they seem to be happy together. I should also, for my sake and for their sake, remove myself from that. This whole harem thing, it seemed good at first, but it just turns out it isn't. And that was one of the endings, which I would have loved to see, where really Madoka goes, "Hey, I'm out. We can still be like friends. Like after a while, let's reconcile, rekindle, or whatnot. But I'm more like just an aunt. I'm not actually part of the family." And Madoka's gone, and they're like no longer a harem. I'm like my own person. Everybody else is their own person. But that obviously doesn't happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't say I would have wanted that to happen. And another ending I would have wanted is for her to go full force into it and kind of say, "Hey, I'm gonna be number one now. Fuck you." But that also doesn't happen because, as I said, she already like she backs off from the family and she like leaves for a couple of months. And then the stupidest thing happens, which, but why I think the ending is as disappointing as it is. Both Madoka, which also has like a little side story before that, I should answer, but it's not too important. And Yuzu go visit Koharu while she's like working, and she's like dizzy and nauseous and whatever. And they're like, "Oh, girl, you're pregnant." And you think, that's like this whole thing. It's like, "Oh no, I divorced him already. Shit. Am I gonna go back? Am I like gonna fight for alimony? Am I gonna take care of the child myself? Etc. etc." No, she just goes, "Ah, actually, I want to be part of this family as well." And she goes back, and Monica, they just drag her along. And it's like, "Oh yeah, you come with us as well. You used to be part of this family, and you're now going to be part of this family as well." She can't have children, but you have plenty of children from us too. And that's how it ends. She gets back into the marriage, Monica comes back into marriage, they have children, and that's it. That's how the last volume ends. Now, there's a little post volume, like for the live action. They made a 20th volume. There are 19 volumes, and she made like a commemorative 20th volume after, I think, 3 years after ending it, which explores a little bit of a story after the fact. A couple of years later, Koharu had twins, and then she gets pregnant again. No, she didn't have twins. She had one child, and then a year later she had a second child. I forgot. Two children separately, and then she got a third one at the end. Spoiler, of course, as you can see there. And I feel like that volume didn't add anything. It was nice to see them again, right? Don't get me wrong. It was nice to see them again, but it didn't add anything, and it really didn't salvage the ending. So with that being said, Harem Marriage had a lot of potential. Really, I cannot say this enough. It had potential to explore interesting concepts, ones that I haven't even mentioned here. But it really had potential to go places. But it just doesn't feel like the author wanted to go there. Now, I'm not sure if the author held back for their own sakes, or for the fans' sake, or what. Because they have written another work, which I forgot the name about, that was actually kind of interesting. I'm going to put the name up. I'm not going to say any spoilery things there, and everything I would say there's almost spoilery. But it shows that she has the potential to actually go to interesting places and kind of finish them. But in this manga, she did not want to do that, which is the why I think it's disappointing. Still, all of that being said, it is a good read. It's a good and beautiful manga. I binged the whole thing in. I read like the first 50 chapters in about a month or so, like every day, 1 or 2 chapters. And then I read the remaining like 150-ish chapters in basically 3 or 4 days. It's a really good and bingeable manga, right? Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes their little dramas. At least I do sometimes. And because of that, it's very readable. So I liked it for the most part, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Let me put it like that. I wouldn't 100% recommend it. If you think it sounds interesting, absolutely dig into it. I think it's worthwhile to at least check the first few chapters out and see if you like the whole idea. Because it's not like this full on pervy thing that I thought it might be at the beginning, but it also isn't that complex in the end. Now, the author, to wrap it up, since has started another series where the characters from Harem Marriage have like been seen in the background a little bit, but only as like cameos and not like actually mentioned. It's called Pole Star. It's about a girl getting into pole dancing. It's actually kind of interesting. It's a sports manga basically, and yeah, that brings me to the end of it. I would recommend two other series. One of them is 365 Days Till Marriage, which is about two people kind of getting not forced into a marriage, but kind of coming up with a plan to pretend to be married because of reasons. I made a little review on my post tab. I I can recommend it quite a bit. And the other one is Chi no Wadachi, I think it was called, or Blood on the Trails, which also covers an interesting dynamic in the family. In this case, it's a dynamic between mother and son, and a bit like a little bit of extended family, which I can highly recommend to read. So yeah, with that I want to say thanks for watching. My wives, thank you also for watching. All of them that are here currently. I have many more, of course. I'm a man with a lot of love to share, as you can see. Maybe I should add a few real wives to my collection, so to speak. And with that, have a nice day.